I recently made a video about Rockefeller, and I gave him the term like he was a modern day conqueror, and he probably, if it was like 1500 years ago, 2000 years ago, he'd probably be like a Alexander kind of.
Hmm.
And I see the same with like these PayPal founders. Like if they were born 2000 years ago, they'd probably be the ones conquering Europe or something along those lines. Could you tell me something about the World Domination Index and what that meant for them, and like what does that even look like?
Sure. So, you play all kinds of tricks with yourself when you're in one of these environments and things are very uncertain to try to stay motivated. And at Confinity, one of the things they did is they built this tool, very simple tool called the World Domination Index. And it was just a user counter, and it would just sort of show them how many users they had. And the user growth was so fast. At the beginning, it was very slow, and then it started speeding up very, very rapidly. And so I think it was Russ Simmons, who was the engineer who built that particular tool. He later goes on, by the way, to co-found Yelp. Um, and so he builds this world domination index. And the idea is basically that at the time, the PayPal co-founders thought, "Oh, we're going to dominate the entire world. Like this money system that we're building is going to be the Bitcoin of our generation. Like we're going to be able to take over the planet with this." And so the World Domination Index was this kind of way of providing inspiration and of providing visibility into how many users they had. And so it was kind of funny. It was kind of clever. It kept them motivated. And at one point, they had to turn it off because it was like taxing the servers so much, because it was like the user growth was so crazy. And so they were like, "Okay, we have to turn the index off because this isn't working anymore." There was also, by the way, at one point they were actually coloring in a giant thermometer type thing showing how many users they had. But that quickly, like as soon as the user growth really started taking off, they had to abandon like coloring in a giant thermometer.
And what was the reason for like the Memento Mori phrase?
Yeah, so this is a famous moment in the story. So the Latin expression "memento mori", it comes out of the Stoic tradition, and what "memento mori" means is remember that you will die, or remember that you must die, right? And so the idea is like it's a phrase that helps you remember that everything is finite, that the end is going to come for all of us, right? And um in more philosophical circumstances, it's a great clarifier. It is the thing that leads you to maybe do the right thing, to try to speed up the decisions you're making, to recognize that your time is very limited on planet Earth. In this context, they hung a banner that said "Memento Mori" because they wanted to remind everybody on the Confinity team that X.com, which was just down the road, was competing against it, and that if they didn't work harder, that Confinity's PayPal product could die. And so it was like this reminder of like, we could die. We could die at any moment. It could all be over, right? And they actually felt this. This is a very palpable, there's a palpable sense of panic in the air around this company and its future. And this banner, Memento Mori, was the way they did that. Now, what was funny was when I was interviewing one of the early co-founders, his name is Luke Nosik, and Luke was just a wonderful conversationalist. And I told him, he hadn't remembered the banner. And I said, "Oh, do you remember that banner that said Memento Mori?" And he's like, "Yeah, I remember the banner." And then his joke was, "But we didn't have any problem mementoing Maury. That was not an issue for us." Like meaning they didn't have any problem remembering that they were going to die because every day they would wake up and X.com had done something different on its website. And by the same token, down the street, Elon is looking at the PayPal website and he is like, "Oh man, these guys are moving so fast." Like he actually admitted to me, he said, meeting Max and Peter and this team, it was one of the rare moments when he had met somebody who was going to move as quickly and work as aggressively as he did. And he actually, even in reflecting on it, I still remember the way he said it. He was like, "Respect." He was like, "Respect," with a little like chin nod, like, okay, respect. And so he had a respect for how aggressively they were trying to improve their product as well.
Hmm. Yeah, it was probably fascinating for him to see that there are like badasses like him around. That he isn't.
Like, because by the way, it's really important. In each case, it's very rare. I, I will say this, like, the people listening to this should remember these are very rare personalities. You can learn a lot from them, but remember that like for an Elon to meet somebody who is as good as Elon is very hard. For a Max Levchin to meet somebody who's as good as Max Levchin is very hard. Elon and Max both see in the other somebody where they're like, "Okay, like, yeah, you're you're a little bit built like me, like you're gonna do the thing that, and I think, by the way, that that's like, that is it is a powerful moment in the book because it is rare for people who are this competitive to find somebody else where you're like, "Ooh, like, you could plausibly, like, really take us on and win." And for both companies, it actually spurs this very fertile period of creation where they look down the road and they say, "This Elon guy's crazy. Like, he's just gonna keep building." And Elon looks down the street and says, "That team over there is building faster than us. We've gotta step it up," right? Um, he called it, affectionately or whatever, but affectionately in some ways, he called it the widget wars because they would wake up, X.com would wake up, and Elon would see a new widget on the PayPal website, and he'd be like, "We have to get a widget done." And so he was like, it was like the widget wars, which is what I called that chapter in the book.
Could you get into like how extreme the rivalry was between those two and how they were competing?
Oh my God. It was one of my favorite sections to write was how insane the rivalry between these two companies, these two internet companies who are competing over payment services, were saying some truly outlandish things to each other along the way. Like, I'll give you kind of two anecdotes that speak to it. So to set the scene for listeners, late 1999, basically post Thanksgiving, X.com has launched its product. PayPal is alive in the world as well. They are competing for users on eBay. And that is the competition that I just described, was this like competition to try to get as many users as you possibly can. And in the course of this, they sort of figure out like, oh, our biggest competitor is this other company. And so one anecdote is there's an engineer named Yu Pan who is celebrating a birthday at the office, somewhat predictably at the office. They bring out the birthday cake, and instead of "Happy Birthday, Yu Pan," it says "Die X.com die" on it. It's pretty extreme. On the just on the street, again, down University Avenue, Elon sends a note to his people at his company, and the subject line is something like "a friendly note about our competition." And the text of the email, it was well, let me put it, it was a memorable email, so much so that people remembered it 20 years later. They didn't remember the exact text, but the text was roughly something like kill PayPal dead, die, 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 right? Like they really were like going after them. Um, at one point, Max says to his fellow engineers, "Be careful what you say in coffee shops and cafes around Palo Alto because the walls have ears." I mean, they were very paranoid about what the competition was going to learn, right? And in retrospect, it can look foolish to us, but imagine it was like deadly serious to these people. If they didn't win, their company would be done. And they were going to do anything and everything, including, acting a little bit crazy around this competition. And the competitive juices spurred some really important product innovations during that time.
They were so fierce. I think to me, like the most fascinating part of the book was like the affiliate war they had.
Mm.
And the way they were burning through money, because that just showcased to me what Peter Thiel was talking about in Zero to One, how a monopoly is better in that sense. Because if it was a monopoly, they wouldn't have to like burn through so much money for affiliates, I guess. Could you share that story of those
Yeah,
affiliates?
totally. So what you're describing is this scheme, this bonus scheme. So um, rewind the clock a bit. Luke Nosik studies one of the great viral success stories on the internet, which is Hotmail and its proliferation. When Hotmail was launched, at the bottom of each email, at one point, they introduced this link that says, "Get your own free Hotmail account," right? And people were excited about this and they signed up, and many, 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 many people signed up. He read a case study about this that was written by somebody, and he remembered it because he's like, well, if you give away something free, people will sign up. And there at PayPal, they came to the conclusion, well, what if we just gave away free money? Like, what if every time, let's say I sent you an affiliate link, Sharif, you signed up and you got $10, but then if you signed up, I also got $10. So it was a double affiliate. Like, there were two fees being paid. They launched this either at the same time or around the same time. X.com says, well, we'll just do it with $20, right? And so they are pouring money. It's like it was somebody just described it as like a race to go bankrupt, right? That like, and one other person described it as the largest transfer of venture capital money to college students in human history, because you had all these people signing up fake accounts and just pocketing the $10 and then moving that $10 somewhere else, and then moving that $10 somewhere else. And so you had this race at the time purely for user growth, they were giving away money. But by the way, the innovation or the insight at the heart of it is you can give away many things, right? David Sachs has this line. He's like, we didn't feel bad giving away money because banks gave away toasters, right? So like if banks are giving away stuff to do user growth, if we're giving away money, part of what we're doing is we're we're giving you the thing you're going to use in the PayPal ecosystem, right? Like we could send you a toaster, but you're not going to send a toaster to somebody else. You are going to send money to somebody else. So the idea was like we're familiarizing you with this system that now allows you to send money from person to person. So it was madness, but there was also genius in it, right? The madness was no checks on it, millions of dollars going out the door, tons of fraud, fake accounts. I had this person tell me, he's like, "Oh man, if I had a nickel for every time like Elvis Presley signed up for a PayPal account or whatever, or like John Doe or whatever." At the same time, you are bringing on a lot of people onto the system, and I would say that in particular, part of the reason that it worked is that a lot of transactions that were happening on eBay, the auction website, which is where these two companies first find a home, a lot of those transactions are very low dollar transactions. So if I'm buying something from you, Sharif, that costs $5 and a company gives me $10 to pay you, then I have made money buying whatever it is I'm buying from you, right? Which is pretty lucrative, a pretty attractive offer if you're a customer. And so there was a little bit of like, because the market was eBay, these bonuses really did increase like the margins on transactions for a particular community of buyers and sellers. And so it was very attractive for them to use PayPal and X.com to pay for auction transactions.